This requires a whiteboard. There's a glare. Okay, hold on. Okay, need some markers. All right. Message on Instagram today saying, my mind is always thinking about food. It's constant. Trying to break the habit. Big year turning 40 next year. All right, let's get into it. So, most people, when they ask a question, expect me to give them just a solution to the problem. And while there are things you can do, I find that it's really important to know why this is even happening. If you can understand why things are happening, it makes it easier to, one, have grace and compassion for yourself, and two, to find solutions that work for you rather than just buying another product or slapping a band-aid on the problem. All right, there is both a psychological and a physiological reason why people can't stop thinking about food. And this is usually during a weight loss or a maintenance phase, but mostly and more intensely during a weight loss phase when someone is trying to diet or lose weight or lose body fat. Sometimes it is actual hunger from being in a calorie deficit. Sometimes it is the preoccupation from food. So just thinking and planning and trying to think of like what you should have, can't have, gonna have, that kind of thing. And then there's some neurobiological mechanisms that are happening that are hard to work against. Time for the whiteboard, but I'm gonna hop to the other side because, well, I'm left-handed. Here we go. When someone is in a calorie deficit, ghrelin goes up. This is your hunger hormone, so you feel more hungry. And leptin goes down. This is your satiety hormone, so we feel more hungry when it goes down. This has to do with your fullness and the feeling of fullness. When we're in this situation, because of a calorie deficit, our brain is saying, hey, we have a problem here. You need to go get food. And it's going to increase your drive to look for food, think about food, and eventually get food. Moving on. There is also a dopamine factor. This is the chemical in our body for pleasure. It's also part of our reward system. It feels rewarding and pleasurable to eat food. So when we start to do that less often, as we do in a calorie deficit or take some of that food away, it makes us seek that dopamine hit even more. Moving on. Now, you may have heard of those medications called GLP-1s. Before I go any farther, please know that this is not a advertisement for or against these types of medication. I'm just telling you what they do so you're better informed. These medications slow digestion so you feel full longer, but they also play a role in that dopamine reward system. They dampen the reward response. So you know what that means? It makes it less urgent to find food, thus reducing food noise. So if you are struggling with always thinking about food or feeling like you need to eat, just know that it's not just willpower. It is also your biology, and that can be very hard. So what do we do about it? Well, what we don't want to do is fall into very restrictive types of diets, because now we know that it's going to affect all of those hunger and satiety hormones and our dopamine and make the situation worse. What we want to do is look at the situation, make sure we're only in a small calorie deficit. So no quick fix fasts, any of that kind of junk. Small calorie deficit. You also want to make sure you are having plenty of protein to help you stay full. Lots of fiber every day. This is really going to help you stay full and do a lot of other great things for your body. So for women, I like to suggest a minimum. This is a minimum. You can have more than this, 20 to 25 grams per day. And for men, a minimum of 30 to 35 grams per day. You can have more if you would like, but this is a great place to stay. If you don't even know what your fiber intake is, guess where you're starting? You're going to start with fiber and you're going to track it and make sure you're doing that. You are going to have structured meal time. I know I'm a terrible artist. The idea between structured meal times is that you're not going too far between meals without eating, because when we go too long without eating, we lose control of our hunger and fullness again. And then it's like a steam engine rolling down, and it's impossible to stop that steam engine. So we want to stay in control and make sure we're eating enough between meals and we're not going too far and too long and doing ultra fasts or anything like that. Where do you start? Well, a nice place to start would be about every 4 hours. Now, before someone comes at me and says, well, you don't need to eat every 4 hours. That's correct. There's nothing magic about 4 hours, but it's a nice place to start if you've never considered how long you've been going without meals. There's more about this, but For now, let's just say about every 4 hours and then adjust up and down from there. If you're going 5, 6, 7, 8 hours without eating and you're not in bed sleeping, you want to look at that. There's also a whole bunch of mindful eating techniques and stress management that you want to think about, but that is a nice place to start. So basically knowing that food noise comes from different things, psychological and physiological. There are ways to minimize that food noise, and it takes practice, it takes habit building. It is not about going on another extreme diet because you will continue to feel like you're failing. If you're struggling with thinking about food all of the time, look into some of these possibilities, understand why it's happening to you, and stick with it. And go Shore Gals.